Fauci emails was trending. And of course, in WikiLeaks style, they released a bunch of Fauci emails. And there was an email here that was in response to Christian G. Anderson, who sent Fauci this email that suggested that the virus was potentially engineered, a small part of the genome anyway. And the guy here, Christian G. Anderson, who is exchanging emails with Fauci, is a PhD, and his credentials are legitimate. Professor, Department of Immunology and Microbiology, California campus, Scripps Research Center, faculty. So he's like a legit guy. He's not you and I saying, "Hey, Fauci, this thing is engineered in the China lab." This is like a legit guy. Looking at the sequence, allegedly, and he's using a lot of sciencey phraseology in his email. And then just the part that stands out: the unusual features of the virus make up a really small part of the genome, less than 0.1%. So one has to look really closely at all the sequences to see that some of the features, in parentheses potentially, look engineered. And Fauci responded, "Thanks, Christian. Talk soon on the call." And so anyway, that's one of the things that, and this is dated, by the way, January 31st, 2020. So very early.
That's the crazy thing is within the first, even before really anything picked up, before masks, before social distancing, before anything. In January of 2020, there were experts looking at the genome and having parts of it stand out as looking engineered.
Yeah.
So
what we want to do for today's episode with the Fauci emails, instead of just kind of speculating, obviously we haven't had time to sift through all the emails. This one that I'm showing here about the exchange with Christian G. Anderson is something somebody else found. So, I think more will come out in that regard. But for this episode, we're going to report what is being reported in mainstream.
On the reporting.
Report on the reporting. Yep. And this is going to come from, first we're going to do CNN, and then we'll do New York Post, which is a little more right-leaning. So we'll start with CNN, which is left-leaning. And the headline: thousands of emails from and to Fauci during the pandemic's early days were published. Here's what they show about him.
About him. Notice how it's about Fauci the man, not about what it means for the pandemic and how it was handled or its origins.
Yeah. So let's see what CNN has to say. Dr. Anthony Fauci was a regular on American televisions as the pandemic unfolded across the country. Millions looked to the leading expert for insight and guidance on how to defeat the virus. He was fielding dozens of questions every day off screen too, answering emails from team members, former colleagues, old friends, reporters, producers, celebrities, and sometimes strangers desperate for advice or looking to leave a note of thanks. BuzzFeed News published more than 3,200 pages of emails from Fauci's inbox after obtaining correspondence spanning from January to June 2020, and the Washington Post published excerpts from more than 860 pages. I think it happened to be 866 pages exactly, of emails during March and April 2020. CNN also obtained a number of emails from February, but many were heavily redacted. While many federal government staffers prefer the phone to email, this correspondence offers a rare glimpse into Fauci's frantic schedule and polite, to-the-point demeanor during the time he emerged as a rare source of frank honesty within the Trump administration's COVID-19 task force.
Frank honesty.
Science is
neither of those things apply to what Fauci was doing at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah.
He was not frank, nor was he honest. It just one example being the no, nobody should wear masks. It's not going to do anything for you. We need to save the masks for the people. And not just that he was telling you not to wear a mask, but he was saying masks don't do anything. You might catch a droplet.
Yeah.
People like to point out the thing. Well, you just said that so he could save the masks for the emergency workers.
Yeah.
Well, then why would he get so specific as to like straight up say masks don't do anything?
Yeah. All right.
Anyways, let's keep going.
So there's one already, just some presuppositions there by CNN.
That's great.
But they also reveal the weight that came with the role. Oh, it's just the weight. Quote,
guy.
"This is White House in full overdrive, and I'm in the middle of it," Fauci wrote in a February 2nd email published by BuzzFeed. Quote, "Reminiscent of post-anthrax days." 2 days later, responding to a journalist, he writes, quote, "I'm really tired. Not much sleep these days."
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, CNN. Fauci's not getting any sleep. He must be working so hard. A lot of people don't get a lot of sleep, and a lot of people work hard. So I don't know what the thing is here, but
yeah, what a poor man.
Poor man. Yep. This next segment is titled "M Hanging in There." The director of National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases and a doctor for the National Institute of Health for more than 50 years, Fauci had worked under 6 U.S. presidents, including then-President Donald Trump, before he became the public face of the federal response to COVID-19. It didn't take long for questions to come streaming into his inbox, often from news stations across the globe and radio shows asking for several minutes of his time for an interview.
Several minutes of his time.
Howard Bauchner, editor-in-chief at JAMA, emailed Fauci on February 5th with a note at the bottom, quote, "You surviving, worried a bit about your workload." Oh, gosh. "M hanging in there," Fauci replied, according to the emails obtained by BuzzFeed. Quote, "Feels like my internship and first-year residency when I was on every other night and every other weekend, but actually never left the hospital because the patients were so sick." No, he's such a hard worker. Several weeks later, National Institutes of Health Director Dr. Francis Collins, Fauci's boss, attached a short reminder at the end of his email to Fauci: "Get some sleep." Boss telling him to get some sleep. In an interview with CNN's Wolf Blitzer in June, Fauci called the work exhausting. Quote, "I'm chronically fatigued. I don't get a lot of sleep," he said. "I'm constantly briefing, talking, doing things, hopefully getting the right cause out." And if the exhaustion ever turned to frustration, Fauci certainly never let it show. Okay. His exchanges, however short, always seemed pleasant. "Let us discuss," he'd signal to his team with a new request when a new request came in. "Thank you for your note," was often his response to the scores of thank you notes streaming in. This is just like a Fauci lapping here.
Yeah, what? He said thank you in emails.
It's so interesting because they're like FOIA requests, Fauci emails, leaks, and then CNN is like, oh, it just shows how hard he was working.
Such a hard worker, such a nice guy. He says thank you in professional emails. Yeah, this is really disgusting.
It's pretty sad. Despite a plate already overflowing with a pandemic raging out of control, Fauci found the time to respond to notes of support and questions for medical advice, even when they came from complete strangers.
Oh, yeah. Doing his job. He found time to do his job while he was doing his job.
This makes me wish we had emailed Fauci so we would show up in the emails.
Oh, wow. That is a great point. Yeah.
And then we can blow
you can
up.
Make sure to search Canary Cry News Talk on the Fauci email search database.
Yeah, somebody might have mentioned it. I was listening to Canary Cry News Talk and they were claiming. All right, I'm going
great
on here.
Show. They've got a lot of great things to say about you.
When someone reached out on March 4th with a question on whether pneumonia vaccines could provide some protection against severe COVID-19, Fauci responded in detail about an hour later. Quote, "Oh my God," the person wrote back, according the emails published by BuzzFeed. Come on, CNN. According to the emails, right? Quote, I honestly never expected you to reply, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being so generous.
Oh, look at him. So generous. Such a generous guy.
Hey, I guess if we respond to emails, we should expect the same kind of treatment now, right? Like, I know we don't do great on responding to emails, but anytime we do, we should expect like oh my gosh, we didn't expect you to
generous.
reply. And then like a news outlet to tell everybody how awesome we are for responding to emails.
Yeah.
When a doctor emailed him in late February suspecting a patient may have coronavirus, Fauci advised on next steps. The email published by BuzzFeed shows, quote, do not hesitate to call or email me, he signed off. To those who reached out fearful of what could be coming, Fauci was honest both about what experts knew and didn't know. Quote, the really critical issue is what the mortality rate actually turns out to be, he wrote in a March 2nd email published by BuzzFeed. Quote, I am hoping for a considerably lower mortality rate, but that might be wishful thinking. Whatever it turns out to be, the major tools that we have are public health measures, particularly social distancing, which we have to start doing now. At the time, he said one vaccine candidate was soon starting their phase 1 trial, but added a, quote, vaccine is out of the question for at least a year or more.
Oh, it turns out
March
not quite
2nd.
the case. Yeah.
March 2nd. Hold on. This is something to compare the timelines, because didn't we go through the timeline of when they started phase 1? Was that in March? I don't remember now. I'm trying to.
They started phase 1, I believe, it was announced as like an official public health emergency on March 3rd 10th. Or 4th.
That was 10th. Okay.
No, and then the first trial. Wait a second. Yeah, and then I believe it was the first vaccine trial started on March 7th.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think back. It was a couple episodes ago. We went through some of the timelines here, and it was pretty startling to see how early they had actually started the phase 1 trials.
They started the phase 1 trials, I believe, of the vaccine about 3 days after it was considered a pandemic or whatever.
Right.
Public health emergency,
I think it was even
maybe.
Before, if I'm not mistaken, because January. Okay, so February, I'm looking at the thing. March 11th is when the World Health Organization declares COVID-19 a pandemic.
Okay.
And that Moderna Teen Cove study, remember that?
Yeah.
That's the one that outlined that, let's see, hold on, March 16th was phase 1. So, okay, so March 2nd email. All right, okay.
So it was a couple days later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's pretty funny is in his emails, vaccine is out of the question for at least a year or more. Well, didn't quite make it a year. I guess it was in the question, Fauci.
I have never been muzzled. Next segment here. The veteran doctor earned scores of supporters and detractors as he held firm against an at times overly optimistic Trump, who frequently sought to downplay the severity of the pandemic. Fauci and Trump disagreed on how to approach the pandemic, what the correct message was for the American people, and how to balance reopening with preventing further contagion. Through it all, Trump insisted he respected Fauci, but disagreed with his approach. But at their relationship's low point, Trump suggested he was considering firing him. Attacks from Trump's allies led to enhanced security. In August, Fauci told CNN's Sanjay Gupta he had to get security protection after his family received death threats and harassment. When a Chinese health official reached out in concern, reached out to Fauci, concerned. He replied, quote, all is well despite some crazy people in this world, according to an April email obtained by BuzzFeed and The Post. Despite it all, Fauci maintained he was never influenced by politics or deterred from speaking the truth. When a columnist emailed in late February asking whether Fauci had received orders to get approval before speaking publicly about the virus, Fauci said, quote, I have never been muzzled or told that I could not speak out publicly about anything during this administration, according to emails published by BuzzFeed. After, what's interesting is like, especially after like the whole WikiLeaks deal, there's this presupposed assumption that anything you say in an email is absolute fact. It's like absolutely true. And while we can compare what Fauci had said publicly with maybe what he was saying in these emails. You have to also remember that, like, you know, he's going to play politics in emails too. He's not necessarily going to, let's say he was briefed